was a joyful atmosphere filled with a lot of amusements and pleasures. This was no other event than the 2022 edition of the Day of African Child at Federal Government Girls College, Kabba, Kogi State. Students and staff of the college by extension were in high spirits as they joined their counterparts in other unity schools nationwide to commemorate the special day set aside by the African Union.
The African Child is a significant day in the books of the AU because of the struggle in South Africa at the time. The school children revolted and many of them were killed. To always remember that day, the OAU then set a day apart to remember that day when many of the African children were killed in South Africa because of apartheid. They revolted because they were not getting good education. They revolted because they were discriminated against and they wanted a better life. So to mark this day, it was set apart by the OAU then in 1991. That's a day, usually the 16th of June, we should mark the Day of the African Child so that we can remember that day and remind our children what it means to be an African, that they are special, they should be respectful, maintain their culture. The fact that they speak foreign language, that's one of the reasons why the South African children revolted. They were being taught in a foreign language. They wanted the common language in Africa. They wanted their language, not a foreign language. So the fact that we speak English and things like that doesn't mean we should forget our heritage. As Africans, children should be respectful, determined and focused so that they can grow up to be what they ought to be. The fact that we speak English doesn't mean that we are English. We are still African and we should be proud of our culture. And you can see that we are celebrating our culture through the dances, the dressing, even the food that we presented all show that we are Africans. And that's just what it is all about. To always remember that we are Africans and to remind us that as Africans, we should cherish our heritage.
The initiative of the Day of African Child is quite unique and paramount considering the fact that African continent is endowed with a number of rich cultural values for proper child training and development.
Very significant because what a white person would do may not be acceptable here. If you listen to when I made my speech, we can learn English, but that doesn't mean we are English. Like English can say madam. But if you come into my office and a student and you address me as a madam, I will find it disrespectful. You're supposed to, when you see an elderly person, you're supposed to say, ma, sir. If our children are not brought up and taught the significance of respect and values, they might think that's how life is, and then they will get into trouble as they grow. When they are in school, they are supposed to learn character as well as academics. It is very, very important, because without character, even if you are the best student, you might not find it easy in the wider world when you are out there. So that's why we teach them, remind them who they are, so that they can grow up imbibing the values of Africans.
African continent with diverse positive values notwithstanding, there are some harmful traditional practices which should be stamped out to enable African children actualize their full potentials. This issue took the center stage as a paper was presented.
One of the harmful potential practices, however, mostly, in my lectures I made mention of girl child, in the sense that when you marry a child early, you have already, disturbed her academically. The time she's supposed to be in school, you have already married her out. And what is she going to do now? Childbearing. So the potentials will not come out. Maybe this is a girl that will become a barrister, a medical doctor, but is now in a home, becoming what? Baby-making machine. That's why it's as a result of polygamy that we're talking about witches and wizards in Africa. There is that competition in the family. Maybe your own mother, my own mother, isn't it? And they are competing. I want my child to be better than your own. There's an issue of a man that said, where the stepmother came and removed his hair. And from that moment, the guy started taking last position in the class. It was God, the intervention of God, that if the man has one wife, the other woman wouldn't have gone there to do that kind of a thing. So polygamy is affecting us. It's affecting our economy. Even the children are not properly fed. Some are left in the hands of their mothers to be fed. So there's a lot of competition, a lot of problem arising from polygamy.
These harmful practices even stop children from going to school, like early marriage. Some children's destiny are truncated because the parents don't appreciate the value of education. We all know that when a child is trained, educated, she's likely to survive better and have a better life than when she's carried off by the 10, 12 and married off to an elderly person. That means that destiny has been truncated. So different practices that are not acceptable at this age should be done away with. Early marriage, genital mutilation, there's so many things, having incision, things like that, that are not good for us. We should do away with them so that our children can survive and live a better life.
Dear African child, remember, I am here to remind you the tales your grandmother told you and her grandmother before her. Tales were told of where I come from. Stories of my motherland, of lands flowing with milk and honey, inhabited by grandmothers who rocked the terrain of my heritage. Their skins told the stories of my identity. Tales of great fallen heroes, fallen but not forgotten, whose bravery has tried marks on our faces. We weave their waters into songs, visions of battles lost and won, conjured the light of our bonfires. We danced around them. I remember how we sat under beautiful moonlight, listening to grandmother tell us stories of our ancestors. Stories of how they marched into battles and returned victorious. Stories of the great Queen Amina. Her people named her warrior queen, imperial, fierce and mighty. She held her people at heart. Grandmother told tales of Queen Moremi, how her wisdom and wit stood exceptional. She was loved by all who came in contact with her. Tales were told of how she was backstabbed by the very people you all know, the wolves. She flowed it. Those ones who are marked with wings and slits. She was captured. Beautiful even in slavery.
The students were given the opportunity to showcase some extracurricular activities such as newscasting, poetry, and drama presentation, among others.
I had no right. But that was a told lie. A told lie that made me blind. They told I was irritating. They told I was disgusting. Because I'm a child of black, whom people see as one black. Oh, African child, know your worth. Being black is not your fault. And never you feel inferior, not to feel like this. Orúkọ àwọn ọlọ́pàá ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ Olúwafúnmiláyọ̀. Àwọn ará oníròyìn tó bẹ́ẹ̀ fi àsìkò yìí sọ fún àwọn ọmọ ilé-ìwé pé kí wọ́n fi ojú sí ìròyìn lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́.
Lafiya yanzu zan gaya maka yadda ake yin kuka kafin ku yi kuka za a sa ruwan ku a wuta.
He's having a sharp tongue.
Sorry, my God.
If you don't tell your son to respect himself, what you think shall not be given to children.
Also worthy of note was a mini exhibition of some African delicacies by the Home Economics Department of the college.
Food is one of the national identity that a nation is being identified with. And in Africa, because we are celebrating the African Child Day, in Africa we have so many dishes. God has blessed Africa, especially Nigeria, with so many interesting dishes. And that is part of what we are preparing today. The African child is meant to grow. We want the child to be intelligent. We want the child to be healthy. And this can only be achieved if this child is given good food, good nutrition. Because good nutrition helps the child to grow very, very well. And that is what we are celebrating today. Giving the African child good food so that he or she can grow to fulfill his or her destiny.
It was no doubt an interesting and educative event as some of the students summed up their feelings.
So I feel very elated about the program going on because it not only just bring us together as African children, but it also help us to know more as we get to interact, showcase our culture and everything, not just the Western education and everything, the tradition, the culture and everything in Nigeria. So I'm very, very happy about everything going on, the progress. I've been able to gain that the tradition and the culture and the tradition in Nigeria should not be neglected just because we're in school studying the Western education and everything. So we should just try and just whatever we can do within our capacity, we should just try to do it for one another, as that will also strengthen the bond between us as students in the school.
I'll be able to learn more about our tradition and culture as Africans, because they've been giving us a series of speeches telling us what brought about the celebration of the African Child Day. So I'll be able to know why it is being celebrated, the reason why it is being celebrated, and I'll be able to know more about our tradition and culture. And for example, the food display now, I'll know more about not only the food being eaten in my own tribe. I'm a Yoruba girl. Does not mean I should not know anything about Igbo or Hausa, so I'm able to know more about other cultures.
Happy to participate in this event because firstly, this will be my last African Children's Day in this school. And again, I'm very excited to know about everything, about our culture, other tribe food, and all that different type of things, how that culture behave, how they greet, and how to respect others.
I feel very happy because my school is one of the good citizens or ambassador of Africa for giving us the opportunity to celebrate this day, because we're an African child, and if we're not given the enlightenment about this day, the inspiration about the day is not really there. And I feel very happy for being part of this. I've been given opportunity to know about how it actually came about, what actually brought about the African Day, like what the history about it. I was enlightened about the harmful acts that actually happened in South Africa and things like that.
The objectives of the Day of African Child, if achieved, we know that catapult African society to an enviable height.